Hey everybody, the summer is done and here we are as a group. We are going to briefly we'll have a chance to briefly go around and debrief our summers a little bit. I want to get a couple of announcements out of the way. I'm only here until 8 o'clock. Janice is going to see you through the rest of the meeting and the recording. Um, we'll do intros in a bit while you're debriefing your summer. A couple of things. We have funding, enough funding left in our grant stuff to pay 75% of travel to get people to Little Rock, Arkansas this fall. One person from each camp to start. We didn't have anywhere near everyone sign up last year. The link I just put in the chat is the details about the in-person event. So the other big announcement there is that the Outdoor Ministries Institute is now part of the Campfire Collective. So we are members, by being members of us, where you are now a member of the Campfire Collective. What that means is that you'll get a number of years of free resources at no cost at the beginning, and then we can slowly work through what the pricing is to be a paid member of the collective after 3 years. That gives you a chance as a camp person and as a board member to plan for those, to see if you're at all benefiting from them, and to go from there. The Campfire Collective is an umbrella organization looking at outdoor ministries as a group. So mainline denominations share the majority of our challenges as outdoor ministries, and theology is a very small portion of that. So the founding, we're the first large group to join as the United Church of Canada's outdoor ministries. And so that will be fully announced, and everything will be released in November at the conference in Arkansas. The Campfire Collective holds a yearly conference with all of with the PCCCA and with the OMI. And then they often, so the OMI, PCCCA is the Presbyterian Church Camp and Conference Association. The OMI is us, the Outdoor Ministries Institute of the United Church of Canada. The OMC, the Outdoor Ministries, or OMA, the Outdoor Ministries Association of the United Church of Christ in the States, is also a supporting member, as well as the Lutherans and the United Methodists and the Episcopalians. So those are all a big group. So that is big announcement one. The wearecamp.ca, if you go to, if you just logged in, I'll put that link again. That will give you details and a form to fill out for travel. There is no specialized form to fill out for the Vision Fund this year, but you as a camp are allowed to ask for $500 for 2 people every year from the Vision Fund. So that's something you can ask for, but the deadline for that is in October. Did you hear that, Aaron? The deadline for that is in October, so don't lose that info, and try and get that in if you're interested in going. What OMI can offer you is 75% of your travel to and from Little Rock, Arkansas. So it's the Bill and Hillary Clinton Airport that you're flying into, and there's a shuttle. Okay. The other thing is, so the partnership, Campfire Collective funding, I wasn't sure if there was something, I had something else on the tip of my tongue and I forget what it is now. It wasn't in my notes. So if it comes up in my thoughts, I will say it before I leave at 8 o'clock. But tonight we just wanted to chat. I sent a link in the emails about the camps that failed to run. I got a note this afternoon that Loon Bay in Newfoundland did not run as well due to lack of funding for staffing. And that was a note from one of the regional staff people out there. So that's an interesting article that Broadview put together, and lots of interesting stuff has happened. So generally, who would like to share a little bit about your summer? Make sure you introduce yourself and where you're located, and don't hog the time. Take like 2 or 3 minutes and tell us about your summer, and then we will move on to someone else and then discuss bigger issues later. Anybody want to go first?
Sure, I will. I'm Daylin with Mackenzie Camp in BC. We operated this summer, not still at max, but up about 40 campers from last year. We terminated 2 cooks and ended up with the board members and volunteers filling in as cook for the rest of the summer. And we had staff illnesses and boil water notices, so it was a summer full of challenges, but lots of happy campers. So that was a positive.
I guess I can go next. Hi, Dave Fletcher from Camp Shagbec in Cypress Hills, Saskatchewan, and we had another very successful year. We typically sell out all our spots in the first half an hour of registration opening up. We only have 6 people that we hire on for the summer, and then we have volunteers for the rest, and so we have about 150 volunteers for a summer. It works pretty good, and we came up with a new idea this year, which is awesome. We all take turns directing one camp. So the 6 positions we have for the summer, you do a different position. You're the cook 1 week, you're the manager 1 week, you're a director for 1 week. But this time we said, you're the director and you bring in your own co-director to help you out. And so we were able to bring in more volunteers that way, and people that they could really trust, and it went over incredibly well. Real successful summer, and yeah, that's about it.
I'll go next. Dan Richards, Kennesaw Camp, Ridgetown, Ontario. On the 15th of June, the health unit let us know that we would not be able to operate our facility without submitting a camp safety plan that eliminated us using anything a certain distance from the slope, the bluffs of Lake Erie. So we were unable to use 6 of our 14 cabins, our dining hall, our kitchen, our staff lounge, our Vesper Point, and our campfire circle. So in a matter of 2 weeks, we secured a kitchen trailer. Shortly after, well, partway through our first week of the summer, we had our dishwasher sorted out. We ate under 2 wedding style dining tents, except in really inclement weather. And we had a summer that wasn't without its challenges at the start, but by the end felt a lot like camp should. So we had full complement of staff, which was nice. Our numbers were just about full for the reduced capacity we were required to operate under. And now we just have to figure out how to, the fall is figuring out how to pay for all the extra expenses we spent. As a little note, a kitchen trailer rental costs somewhere around 30 grand for the summer for 2 months. So yeah, so that was our summer in a nutshell. We had a large group of leaders in training, and a good complement of staff, and looking to build towards next summer. But our fall now is also, besides figuring out how to pay for that, it's figuring out what we can do next year, because we're not going to do a repeat of this summer, but there's probably not enough time and money currently to build a new dining hall before next summer. So we have to sort that out. But I will stop there.
I'll go ahead. We had a good summer at Chemo Key. Jill from Camp Chemo Key. But we had a good summer. Pretty much full camps, pretty much full staff complement. No, all the little trials and tribulations that you have throughout the summer went on, but nothing really major or horrific happened. So yeah, so now we're just into fall programs and planning for next year already. So
I feel like we should really turn this into a camp game where the person who finished speaking should say, okay, I'm throwing it out too, and then they tag somebody next to go.
Sounds awesome. Jill, you're up. Who are you tagging?
okay, Erin, go ahead.
Thanks, Joe. I'm Erin, Camp Big Canoe, Bracebridge, Ontario, and we had a bit of a crazy summer. started out looking amazing for staff, and that quickly took the downhill slope. And having said that, we also had over 100 more campers than last year in total. So it was quite the balancing act of things getting done. For the most part, campers had fun. I now know how to completely lead our LIT program also and grade it, because we offer 2 high school programs, and the very last week of camp, my LIT director had to leave unexpectedly. And so I got to do all of the grading and marking for that. So now I have a better understanding of the program in and of itself. Since this is only my second summer, for those of you I haven't met there, it's kind of a new program for me. They've been doing it there for about 10 years, but new to me. So, yep, interesting and crazy. And I will toss it over to Robin.
All right. Oh, I haven't changed my name yet. I'm from Camp Coolery in BC, in the interior of BC. I'll change my name shortly. And sorry to be a little late. I had an old link and it had me sitting there waiting for you to start the meeting. It didn't tell me that the meeting was already underway somewhere else. It just, anyway, my bad for using an outdated link. And yeah, we had a little bit of staffing issues. We had our, one of our assistant cook, we have 2 cooks. Our assistant cook lasted about an hour and a half. And of course, camp in full swing, campers arrived and everything. The head cook had been there for a few days, but the assistant came in at the same time as the first campers, which was our family camp. So it wasn't the end of the world, but it was a little bit, but our lifeguard was solid, and that was all anybody really cared about. The lifeguard was solid. He wasn't going anywhere. We paid him more than the local swimming pools. So, and he got fed and he got housed. So, and yeah, we had more campers this year. We had the big thing, our LGBTQ camp, which we have been trying to run since Anna White begged any United Church camps in BC to do that. Once again, we did not get enough enrollment to run it, so that was it. That's the end. We ran it 2 out of 5 summers, and we've had to cancel for, okay, so 1 was a pandemic, never mind that one, so 2 out of 4. But that was it. We just it's not that there is not a demand for it in this area, and all of our queer campers that normally that we expected to enroll in it said, why would we do that? The regular camp is perfectly friendly and a good place to be. Why would we need to be separated from everybody else? So yay. Like that says something about the rest of the camps. So we had to cancel a week of camp in the middle of the season, and we had enough people on the waiting list for our junior camps that the junior girls camp director said, I'm free, I'll run another week if I can round up the staff, the volunteer staff for it. And everybody jumped in, and so we didn't lose a week. We just had different people in than we expected, and we didn't have to turn away like 20 some odd campers who were on the waiting list. So it was a small camp, but it was, our capacity is right around, it's technically 60. We don't usually run over 50. And so to have a camp full of 50 and then another 20 on the waiting list, like, okay, we'll go where the need is, and opened up another week. So yeah, so that was nice. And of course, we're still under construction. We still don't have our washrooms after the tree smashed our washrooms, what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? We're still using temporaries, and it's just always one thing after another. Oh, and we got the most amazing boat ever. Of course, it didn't get delivered till after the last camp. But we had a custom built, we're boat access only. And with help from the Pacific Mountain region, our boats were leaking and horrible, and we were pumping so much money into old motors. We commissioned a landing craft. So our camp is now accessible for people in wheelchairs, at least to get out to the camp. We still have some boardwalks that need to be built to get them out to chapel. Our new washroom has accessible washroom in it. So we're getting closer and closer to being a truly accessible camp for being off-grid, off-road, off everything. And the boat is, I've only seen pictures of it. I haven't actually seen it yet, but the people that have been using it are blown away. It can land, it can drop onto the beach, it can drop onto the end of the dock. People can walk off the boat, walk on the boat. They can load equipment, which used to be going down one of those, you know, those ramps that float with the water levels, and sometimes are like that. You're carrying groceries down that, trying to load it onto a leaky boat. And to have this Cadillac of a boat is just amazing. So we feel very blessed. All right, because I came in late, I don't know who else has gone. Except for Aaron. Because that's where I came in. Who else is left?
I think that Brendan hasn't gone.
Okay, Brendan.
Hi, Brendan from Sparrow Lake Camp. We were on our 4th chef by the end of the summer. There's all sorts of stories there. That was a very interesting chefy summer, which is always very stressful because it kind of takes our focus away from things that we really want to be focusing on, other than the basic feeding of the children. We also had some water issues, which was a little bit challenging. So we have a very good water treatment guy who's been helping us out for many years, and he has some good ideas for how we can make it better for next year. So that's a good thing. We were looking really good for staff too at the beginning of the summer, which was fantastic. And then a whole bunch of things happened before the summer to a whole bunch of our staff. And so we backfilled some positions in here and there, and got through. More campers than last year for sure. We had 2 completely full sessions, which was great. Our 2 sessions in the middle of the summer totally full. We're doing like more 1-week sessions now than we were in the past. So the 1-week sessions seem to be filling up very well with like 150 kids. The 2-week sessions that we traditionally held are still not really filling up as well as they could. And yeah, I mean, I think the kids reported they had a really good time. I think the food was a little bit of a pinch point, and because we had so many cooks kind of coming and going, they were doing things like buying a lot of like pre-made stuff from GFS, which is a little expensive. So we're just figuring all that out and starting to plan for next year. So there you go. If anyone wants to band together and create a food service system with us, that's on my radar, to come up with a camp menu and camp system. I went to an amazing camp this summer, Camp Mary Dale or Mary Grove. Oh my God, I feel so bad. The wonderful director there. She's been doing it since 1998 or something. And her chef left, and then she decided to create a kitchen system for their camp. And I went there, and like 45 minutes before the lunch was served, the cook kind of wandered in, just real casual like, and started making lunch, and like not a care in the world, and everything. Like the whole kitchen was just completely spotless, and everything was in total order. And she was so on top of it. It was like amazing. And so I asked them for help. So she's more than willing to lend us some sage advice on how to make that happen. Other than spending $200,000 on a caterer. So yeah, that's our work for the year. And if anyone wants in on that, give me a shout. I'm going to shoot it over to. I'm going to shoot it back to Joe because he hasn't said anything, has he?
I haven't, and Jill, who's on the call, will unmute and talk a little bit if I miss things. So my camp director, Jill, is here as well. Pierce Williams ran. We had slightly less campers than we did last year, but we had the right amount of staff for those campers, which is the important part. We had a cook who made it all the way through the summer and has committed to the next 3 summers. Some of you have met her in the past. Her name is Ika. She was our old camp director, so she's just back, and we're truly blessed to have her in the kitchen and be around camp. We let go of some staff. We sent some campers home, all of the regular things, but no major issues. Staff are sometimes unintelligent, and that's to be expected from young people as we work with them. Jill, anything that I've missed there?
Hi, I'm Jill. I work at the.
We can't hear Jill.
Can't hear me?
We cannot hear Jill.
Can you
Jill
hear me?
Can hear me, but we can't hear you. Nope. So if your mic's not working, that's fine. Jill did introduce some in our design.
I think Joe's messing with you.
Jill introduced a variety of Indigenous teachings to help our staff better focus their learning and get us ready for more as we go forward and build on. You can hear Jill. I just can't hear Jill. Oh, look at that. Go right ahead then.
Yeah, so I've been working with Pierce Williams for not too long now. It was a really huge learning curve for myself because I haven't worked in camps in a little while. My skills were a little bit rusty, but I think that it was a great summer to bring some Indigenous teachings and a different point of view. And nothing really happened that that we weren't ready for, and anything that was a curveball. Joe just said, at least we're not Kenesseri. Good summer overall.
I didn't hear a thing she said right until the end when I switched my speaker.
It's Lorraine Powell here. I guess I haven't spoken yet. I'm the treasurer for Mackenzie Camp. Can you hear me? No. Okay. Maybe you can't hear me. Okay.
I think everybody can hear you, Lorraine.
Okay. I guess so. Mackenzie Camp, as Daylin said, had a fairly successful summer. The one thing we didn't get is all the grants that we got in the past, and I'm not sure why that happened. And but we did get an Indigenous grant, so that's good. And so I'm going to research some of that and work with somebody. The other thing is, as Daylin said, we had cook problems, and I just want to say our chaplain, who is our chaplain for the summer, decided that he would cook as well. And so that was quite a challenge and an awesome time together. And we had a successful quilting retreat as well. And now we have some rentals. So looking forward to planning for next year. Thanks.
Alex from Camp Abaguit in PEI. We had a massive summer. We had an incredible increase in our numbers. So we were about 77% increase in our camper registrations. We had new programming. We ran a grandparents camp, which we partner with Grand Families Inc., which is a local organization who works with grandparents who take care of their grandchildren. That was a huge success and learned a lot from that. We had a boiled water advisory, which is great, but that worked out really well. You know, to say the least, the staff took it and just ran with it, and coped really well with it. Our kitchen staff were, let's just say, to be desired. We really struggled. Our cook that we had hired at the start of the summer quit at the end of staff training. So going into week one, we technically didn't have a cook. But one of our senior counselors stepped up, said he'd cook. So he kind of saved us, but he struggled. But yeah, overall, it was a good summer.
Is there anyone else that hasn't spoken? I know we also have a couple camp adjacent folks from United Regional staff. You're also welcome to share if you have anything that you want to chip in with, even if it's not directly related to being at camp all summer.
Janice, I haven't spoken yet. I'm Kathy Kohler from Camp Kasota West on Sylvan Lake, Red Deer. We draw our campers from, just a minute.
Yeah, but I can't, you know, everything is.
We draw our campers from Calgary mostly and bus them. We had a good summer. I think that probably that it can be attributed to some good returning staff. And one of the things that I must say is that I have organized the kitchen, or I've worked in the kitchen for 20 years, and I had wonderful young people helping me. And so that made the summer go a lot better. We were up about 80 campers from the previous year. So other than the fact we didn't get any Canada Summer Jobs grants at all, which made us very apprehensive about whether we could make it financially, because that's the only grant that we really usually ask for. And that was a little scary, but we made it. It's we got a few dollars in the bank. And it worked really well, and thank goodness we did that. We did get some help from a foundation for paying for that, which was a blessing. Other than that, we had good staff, we had good campers, we had good weather, and other than I was very tired by the time it was all over. Took me about 2 weeks to recover, but I think maybe we've done well. Okay.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there anyone else that hasn't had a chance to jump in that would like to jump in? Awesome. I will also wrap us up then. I am with Camp Kidston in Nova Scotia, so also on the East Coast. We had a busy summer, like very similar themes to many of you, more campers than previous years. Perhaps a record number for our camp, unclear because there's not very good documentation from past years, but we broke 400 for the first time in a decade, if not the first time ever. Yeah, some challenges, some bumps in the road. We're still struggling with mental health, bouncing back after the pandemic, particularly with our staff. We've got some projects in progress. We're working with a consultant right now to develop some staff training around that. But it's still been an ongoing challenge that has, changed since the pandemic. Yeah, so I think overall good. And I've taken some good notes here. There's definitely some themes. I'm curious to know, in addition to what everyone has said, though, as we look forward at the year to come, as you may know, we host one of these calls each month. Some of them are open calls like this, but many we try to source guest speakers or other people who come in and share on a topic. So I'm curious to know, as we look at the year ahead, as you reflect back on your summer, what might be most helpful in terms of topics, subjects, themes, for speakers or topics that you might want to hear more about or chat more about with other camp pros from across the country. And you don't all have to speak at once.
Well, it sounds like many of us are struggling with the idea that the student grant program, like, I don't know, I didn't hear anything that there wasn't going to be any student grant money coming through. So that was a very big shock for us. So it would be nice for us to, I don't know, maybe would it be possible to contact somebody from the government to give us some idea as to, is that program dead? Like, is this still possible to apply next year? And did we do something wrong with the application process where we weren't able to qualify anymore? Because when people mentioned that, I noticed a lot of heads were nodding that they're pretty shocked that they weren't going to be getting any grant money for that.
Yeah, and are you speaking specifically to CSJ, Canada Summer Jobs, or do you also have a provincial employment grant?
Well, I'm not involved with that grant. I just know that the grant committee mentioned that it didn't come through. I think in Saskatchewan, I thought it was a Saskatchewan program, but I know there was the federal program too. In the past, I know we've applied to both, but then I don't know if one superseded the other. But all I know is we didn't get anything this year, whereas in the past we typically get at least 2, sometimes 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I know that's a common topic. There are still camps getting them, so it's not something that, all camps have been disqualified from. I know there's several camps on here that got them this summer, and I know at least 4 camps that didn't get any this summer. So I think that's definitely a shared theme, and noted. Something you might also be interested in passing on is speaking to your MP. It's not clear to me how much of a role MPs have in the process, but they do have some sort of final sign off approval after it's gone through the actual evaluation process at employment, whatever Canada. So it might be worth encouraging whoever is responsible for grants to connect with your MP as well. I know that's what we're doing, just to try and see locally why or what we can do next year. But definitely sounds like something worth advocating on a larger level as well.
On the MP level, I noticed when I was filling ours out, some of them don't declare, there's an option for them to declare a specific point of focus for those grants for your riding, and some of them don't, and they just let it ride with the federal priorities. And if you could talk to your MP and maybe sell him or convince him of the benefit of focusing on youth and young people or recreation or something that ties in, and make sure, because there's marks for that, if you line up with federal or local priorities of your MP, that's part of the scheme for getting the grants, part of the rubric. And so if you talk to your MP and approach it from that perspective with them as well, because they get the final approval, but they set their priority. And if you can convince them to make one of their local priorities, something that lines up with camp, then that might be beneficial.
I also know for people who, from what I heard from Canada Summer Jobs, is that there's just a pool of money, and it can be X amount of dollars, and then there's a certain amount of grants that kind of pass muster according to the Canada Summer Jobs granting body. They pass it on to your MP, then your MP's office selects and parcels out the money from there. So last year, what happened was we had been put into the wrong riding. We'd been put into Parry San Muskoka, whereas we're actually on the other side of the river in Simcoe North. And when we were in Parry San Muskoka, we only got 3 jobs granted. When we were in Simcoe North, we get 7 to 10. So it really is, I think, just about the amount of money and the amount of people applying for the jobs in general. And I definitely get in there and talk to your MP. Like, I think that would be probably really, really important to you as a camp, if you're looking for that grant, to go and like get some FaceTime with them, invite them by or whatever, and just make sure you have that connection and know what they want, as Dan's saying.
That's really interesting because we just got redistricted. So in the next election, we're going to be in a different district. So that would make sense that our MP just didn't care about us because we're not going to be his for much longer, and just gave it to people who are going to be in it. That makes perfect sense. Thanks for mentioning that.
Our MP, our old MP in our riding was this guy, Bruce Stanton, and his great grandfather sold the land for Sparrow Lake Camp to the Massey family, who then gave it to the church. So like he has like this like historical connection to the camp. So going and talking to your MP, I can guarantee you will work for you. Like Bruce Stanton just had a big soft spot for us, and now we have to deal with this next person who's not as friendly to us. But yeah, it's very political.
Kathy, I saw you had unmuted there.
Yeah, thanks. If you have people writing the grants too, and especially if they're new at it, to take the course that they give you is really helpful too. They often offer a best ways to apply for those grants. I would recommend those have been helpful. The cooking thing, I think that would be a really good OMI one, something around different ways camps have found been doing their cooking, like, and the way that they feed their camps. I get to travel around and hear the different approaches that the camps use, and there's some really cool ideas, and I know maybe folks would pick up on them. And I have a kind of a question, but maybe it would be a topic, is how you're storing your documentation, like your documents, and what do you how do you know what you need to keep? How long do you have to keep things, and where your camps are keeping those things? And that's kind of a question I have for a regional person, like, where are how long do you have to keep them, and do you have to digitize them, or what are folks doing with that?
That's a great question. I think that also varies across the country, but still a great topic for conversation. I know we're quite fortunate out here that our region will keep all of our documentation for us, which removes the need for us to have a safe space to do that. But I've heard many people say that their regions won't maintain camp documents and that they're sort of left to their own to do that. So I don't have the answer to that, other than that is a great question. Any other topics, conversations, things you'd like to see covered at OMI over the next year? I see Aaron unmuted, and then Alex.
Kathy, I was just going to say, I can send you our list of document retention plan, because it's very specific. All of our stuff's stored on site, and I'm trying to figure out how to get it all digitally so I can destroy the paper copies because they're not necessarily safe. It's paper copies where they are.
My suggestion would be fundraising. We really struggled with fundraising this year. We lost one of our biggest fundraisers, which usually brings in about $10,000. So that was a huge hit to us. So fundraising is definitely one for us.
For sure, for sure. I'd also be curious to know overall how many people do like large event fundraisers, like what you're talking about losing Alex, or how many people do more like continued like the gift cards that you get a certain percentage back, or like ongoing fundraisers. Any other topics, conversations you'd like to see come up, topics we can seek some professionals on that would be helpful or beneficial?
Creative staffing models or creative staffing pay model, getting more money for staff, any and all of the above. Just getting staff that will be able to stay the whole summer.
I wish I had the magical answer for you, Erin. Robin, I see your hand next.
We could use a discussion about capital projects and not just capital fundraising, but actual project management and, you know, logistics of trying to get work done that the best time of year to do is summer. You know, we're fighting the season all the time and dealing with contractors who, oh, we can come in and work on that while you're in the middle of camp. Well, no, you can't. We, you know, just keep the kids away. No, we can't. You know, so dealing with that sort of thing, and like managing the projects as well as fundraising.
Yeah, thank you. If there aren't any other pressing hot topics people want to share, we might as well branch off into staffing momentarily. I see there's a volunteer in the chat, Dave, who might have a little insight to offer into that. I don't know if you can give us the brief overview in like the next 5 or 10 minutes, but would be interested to hear.
I meant if that was going to be a, sorry, I thought that if that was going to be a session coming up at a future discussion.
Yeah, of course. It can definitely be a longer topic for conversation as well. Any last, again, we've got about 10 minutes left here. Any last questions, comments, stories, reflections on the summer that folks would like to share with this network before we wrap up?
I'd just be curious how many people had a significant portion of staff struggling with their own mental health issues that were maybe triggered by some of their camper issues. Like we had quite a number of camper issues that were not necessarily identified by parents on health forms, and so it would be things that would come up in conversation with their unit, anything from self-harm to eating disorders to difficulty with family, and you know, a lot, those are pretty heavy topics can be heavy topics for 17, 18, 19-year-old staff, and so I think, you know, at a certain point that just becomes exhausting for them, and wondering if you guys were seeing that and kind of maybe some of the ideas you had to help walk your staff through that. You know, I think we all do the best we can, but did you try anything different or new, or did you just see a lot of it and it's something we'll deal with this year?
Definitely, yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that's uncommon, Aaron. Like what I did this year actually, as we were hiring people, is I put in the staff welcome package, and I think I'm going to put it in a item that you get as soon as you apply. That basically is a list of disclaimers about camp, written in a positive way, of course. But that basically just take everyone through what the expectations of the job are and what the realities of the job are. That camp is, I think for many years we kept batting around this idea that we need to treat staff mental illness at camp, but unfortunately I'm not qualified. I've done mental health first aid stuff, I've done all sorts of stuff. I always end up just saying the wrong thing and kind of pissing people off or something, and they don't like what I have to say or whatever. We had one staff member who kept needing to take breaks for her mental health and stuff, and like I was kind of like, well, maybe you need to find someone to help care for you, and she took that terribly. And so I think what I've turned to is basically saying to people, camp can be a triggering place, and we need to be prepared for that. And you really need to have, if you feel like you could be triggered by any of these things, you should really have a care plan in place. And we give our staff like a little rocket hub, it's a wireless internet connection and an iPad if they want it, and they can talk to their primary healthcare provider or their therapist or someone that they have a therapeutic relationship with. And we provide that for them. And that is how we can support people. The people who had that support, I found, did very well at camp because they were able to connect with the person with whom they had already had a pre-existing therapeutic relationship. Whereas the people who didn't have that set up had a hard time. And that was what our nurse talk to them about. If I don't read people's healthcare forms, but if people did put that some kind of mental health stuff on their healthcare form, the nurse would reach out to them, connect with them about that type of stuff, and just direct them to do that. That helped a bit, a bunch, but it still was very much, it's still very hard that kids, I think these young people really expect the kids to come and kind of be perfect children. And then we get kids who are not perfect children who are standing on top of the shelves threatening to jump off, and they want to go home, and they're screaming and yelling, and the whole cabin of girls is refusing to eat dinner and all of this sort of stuff. And I think that we're kind of definitely struggling with just how do we deal with that within the context of a Christian camp. Like, I think from a kind of like blanket business point of view, we kick all these kids out, we don't have anything to do with them, but I don't think that really matches the mission of a Sparrowlet camp. So we're still kind of struggling with how do we love these kids into being part of the community in a week or 2 weeks. So it's still something we're working on.
In 2022, we really struggled with mental health issues. One thing our directors did this year was move curfew from midnight to 11:30. And while the staff did not like it, it was a tremendous help. It made a huge difference in staff weren't tired. The difference was night and day. So that was a huge change that we made that wasn't liked, but it went great.
At our camp, we only had sent one child home all summer. What we did differently here was we used a lot of Indigenous teachings, talked about working from the 7th direction. So right from pre-camp and training, we were discussing how people can be working on that inner spiritual strength. And we had daily smudge. And when people were struggling, they could either go to prayer or they could come and smudge with me. And we didn't seem to have as much difficulties, it seems. But I mean, there was some that was, but also we did that in addition to having a registered social work therapist on call at all times. And someone did come to the camp to offer that training to the staff in pre-camp. But what I think we relied on the spirituality at camp. So our programs were based on the medicine wheel, and that it's our emotional health, our mental health, those are part of who we are, as much as taking care of yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, what you're learning every day. And all programming was related to that. And as much as every direction is related. So that's something that we did differently at Pierce Williams this year.
On the mental health topic, did anybody else have campers requesting to bring support animals? Mental health support animals? Yeah.
We had a dog on site for a week.
We always have dogs,
Yeah.
but
no, I meant
somebody
like a
wanting to
support
bring a camper wanting to bring their personal support animal to live with them in the cabin.
Yeah, this was a support dog with a camper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was a really positive experience.
Okay.
Yeah, the dog would sleep with the camper and just go with the camper throughout the day. It would get breaks throughout the day though. So, and at that time it just needed to be away. And so it would usually just come into my office and hang out with me. But we found that as the week went on, the camper needed the dog less. And so the dog actually spent more time with me, but it was a really positive thing. And it taught the other campers a lot too, right? They learned not to pay attention to the dog and then understood it was working. So, yeah.
And Brendan, what was the result in your camp?
We had a very odd situation that I don't know that I can get too deep into, but yeah, there was an emotional support dog that came to camp. It didn't really react. Sorry, it didn't really interact too much with the kids that it was there to support. So anyway, but there was a dog. It was fine. Nothing really came of it. It was just a strange situation overall. That's all I can say. Yeah.
I think that's, perhaps something, Robin, that like could be covered in policy. I'm not sure if, there's folks that have a policy on that or, have resources for that, but that sounds like something that, yeah, ideally you might have something in place to like communicate with families beforehand and know what the boundaries and limitations and what you can accommodate and what you can't accommodate and all those types of things.
Yeah, because legally in BC, we basically have to accommodate. We don't really have a choice. We had some discussions with this family, and the dog ended up not coming because it wasn't fully trained yet. And that was our concern. And honestly, I was concerned it was going to get eaten by an eagle because it was a Pomeranian. And we seriously, like, we have eagles that swoop over the campers' heads, bald eagles. They have a nest on camp. They sit on the pier and they eat fish. Like, I was honestly scared for the dog's life. I was glad when they decided not to send it, but I think this will come up again and again. So
yeah, for sure.
We have like family camps throughout the summer, and people have brought their pets And our rule is generally like the dog has to be on a leash at all times. That's absolutely guaranteed. And I warn them about the animals, because you don't want your dog going off and meddling with a fox or a raccoon or a porcupine or an eagle in your case too. Yeah.
Skunks, we got skunks too.
Skunks, yeah.
I think Jill had mentioned back in the chat, staff mental health could definitely turn into an entire topic of its own as well. So perhaps we'll bookmark some of these conversations. I know other Jill from Pierce Williams, I'm curious to hear more about your approach at some point as well. So lots to discuss on that. For now, it is 9:27, or a different time for everyone in different places. But we are almost wrapped up. A few quick reminders before we go. We are getting back into our year routines. So OMI calls open to anyone from your board, any volunteers, any staff members, any summer staff members that want to stay engaged or, are looking for leadership topics and conversations. Anyone is welcome at these calls, and they are the third Monday of every month. Except December, it's the second Tuesday of December just because of the holidays. Those dates were in the last email Joe sent, so you can also bookmark them, or when you register for Zoom, there should be an option to import them automatically into your calendar. As well, if you are working full-time year-round, or not even full-time, but if you're working year-round in a senior leadership position, we do have senior leadership conversations the first Thursday of every month, starting back up in October. I don't know what Thursday that is off the top of my head, October 5th. So if you are either yourself working year-round for a camp, or you are a board member and have someone working year-round for your camp, please encourage them to join into those calls on the first Thursday of every month. And then, as Joe mentioned at the top, we'll be gathering in person in November in Little Rock, Arkansas. So please get on your funding applications and whatnot with your region or with the Vision Fund, passport applications. Not going to name any names, but I'm looking at certain people. And we hope to see you there in person, because it's always nice to debrief and connect in person after a busy summer. Again, that funding subsidy is open to anyone that's involved in your camp. So that can be a board member, a volunteer, a staff member. Great opportunity for some of your summer leadership staff. If no one else can go, it's a great opportunity for someone who you think might be interested in pursuing camping full-time in the future. So please, I know many of us have jobs and whatnot that don't allow us to get away, but if you can't get away for that conference, please think about others involved in your camp who might be interested in that opportunity. Those are all of our announcements for now. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we will see you next month.